The book of Malachi. What do you know about Malachi? Well, Tom, I don't know nothing. I don't even know how to pronounce it.
Well, I know I've read it before.
He is a minor prophet. The only thing that distinguishes minor prophets like Malachi from major prophets like Isaiah is their long-windedness. You'll notice Isaiah is 66 chapters. Malachi is 4. So everybody that's under 12 chapters becomes a lesser prophet or a minor prophet. Everybody over that is a greater prophet. But it doesn't mean their messages were any greater or lesser. It just means that one was a little more, one was long-winded and one wasn't. One was a Baptist, one was me. I'm definitely in a minor category. No. In fact, I have a book in my office right now, a picture book made up from a little group like this that I taught in my very first church in Florida, up in Jacksonville. And it was a specialized group, young people, 25 years old, married couples. And when I left, they gave me a book called The Minor Prophets. And it's pictures of me and them, and each took a page. Anyway, that's another story we're not going to talk about. There's still a boat sunk in the Swanee Canal, and that was my fault. We never said anything about it. Anyway, that's a whole other story. All right, well, Malachi is the last of the prophets. That doesn't mean he was any less or any greater. That just means the Lord appointed him at the close, what we call in my business, the close of the testamental period. You have creation, of course. And after creation, you tag along for a while. And you have the law, the Pentateuch, and all that stuff. Anyway, then it starts, the median starts by people, and you have the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph. And this pretty much closes out the law with the Deuteronomy, the retelling of the thing. Then you go into the era of the judges and kings and and they chronicle it all. RONICLE, so I don't care. Chronicle it all, and then they go into the period of exile, LE, where they're destroyed once and for all. Then they come back and rebuild. And Jerusalem is established again. The temple is established. This was the great temple here under Solomon. Ta-da! And this little temple they built when they got back was beep. Wasn't a whole lot of temple there. Now, over the years, it would get bigger. Anyway, Malachi came right here at the very end of what we call the testamental period. God goes surprisingly silent then. This was probably around the year, ballpark figure. They rededicated the temple, we know, in 414 BC. So this was probably around 400, right in that ballpark somewhere. And God went seemingly silent for until about 4 BC. At 4 BC, there was born in an animal trough a little baby, who is Jesus the Christ. And suddenly, God's back on the radar, okay? And from 4 BC till literally the end of time with the Revelation. This is pretty much how the Bible breaks down chronologically. Okay, Malachi comes at the very end, the last word God's given his people. The last thing he's at, basically throwing up his hand and said, I've had it with you guys, really. I mean, you walking around here like you all that in a big bag of chips. Well, you ain't all that. And forget about the chips. No extras. And he has a little problem. And he sends Malachi in there. Of course, at the end of it, they go and kill him, which is not uncommon. But this is God's last word to his people for a very long time. 4 centuries. This is what we call the intertestamental period. Now here you get a bunch of histories that were written, but none of them are considered to be inspired or influenced of God. God is here, and God is here. But basically man was on his own for about 400 years. And a lot of people will say, oh, these should be in the Bible. And there is an intertestamental Bible. They call it that. But it's really not a Bible. It's not a canon per se, in that it acknowledges God's inspiration or his influence. Now, the Catholics, their Bible includes this Bible. You get books like Baruch, whoever he was, and Maccabees. You get 4 books of Maccabees, 1 through 4 actually. And it's from the Maccabees book that we learn of the 139 independence of the Jews when they fought and ran the Ptolemies out once and forever, got rid of them. And once they did that, they claimed independence. This is where they fought from the temple, and the menorah had about an hour's worth of oil left, and they lit it, and it burned for 8 days or 7 days or whatever, and gave them light and warmth and hope enough to fight the battle and finally win. That was the Jewish independence. This is what Hanukkah is all about. Hanukkah is to the Jew what the 4th of July is to us, basically. It's the winning of their independence. It's not a holy day. It's just a historic day. See, you understand what I'm saying? Well, then, because the light never ran out and the menorah never went dry, they celebrated. You can buy the little Hanukkah candles in the Publix during these days. Little baby ones, you stick in your little baby menorah and you light one each day and you give somebody a present each day. They've kind of turned it into Christmas. But it's independence. But it's not a holy day. See, it's not like Yom Kippur or Passover or anything, or Purim. This is more, or Rosh Hashanah. It's just a historic day, like 4th of July is to us. Nobody goes to church on the 4th of July. Not anymore, anyway. They don't go to church on Sunday, for crying out loud. This is what's going on. Well, the question becomes, why did God send Malachi? There are a few other prophets here and here. There's a couple in during the exile. Daniel, we all like him, and the lion's den. There's a bunch up here. I mean, you had to wait in line to bring your message to Israel. There's a bunch right here, just before the exile. This is where Isaiah comes, and this is where, and there's one couple right here, right after the exile, still back in Jerusalem though. This is Jeremiah. He's crying and whining and fussing over the fact that the temple is destroyed and lay in ruins and burning and flaming and all that. And you get a couple more. One here, just as they come back under Zerubbabel and they start to rebuild and they don't want to, so Ezra comes out and says, hey, y'all, get up off that rear end of you and grab a shovel. We're going to build us a temple. And they start building the temple, and they build the little dumpy one. And don't worry, y'all. It'll get better someday. And eventually it did, but it was really the Romans that did that. 139, they won their independence. About my brain fails me here. I'm going to say 120, 119. A new kid came to town, and this was the Romans. And they didn't leave. They stayed until 311, basically AD, when a little guy from the Ephesian church routed his armies. His name was, whatever his name was, Alexander. Little guy named Alexander. He came and routed the Romans. But for a good, again, nearly 400, 500 years, Rome was in control of pretty much everything. Certainly the entire New Testament was written under the auspices of Rome. The Old Testament, of course, was, wow, just everything. So Malachi was the last prophet God sent in to these people here just before he would go silent. So the message has got to be somewhat, in my opinion, meant to be poignant, meant to be, kind of grab your collar and say, look, listen. And God is a little miffed. He's a little upset with his people. He says, I did this. I gave you kings. I gave you judges. I gave you everything you wanted. I tore your stupid temple down. I put you in exile for 70 years. I came back. I let you come back. I helped you rebuild. Now what? Have you learned nothing? Does your mother know you're this stupid? Oh. Yeah, I got this buried in me. Coffee. Okay. What else you know about Malachi? That was pretty good. You knew all that. Well, the message is not going to be very kind. So you have to imagine God speaking to his people. He called his people together one last time. Now, they did not know he was going to go silent for 400 years. In fact, it is during these historical books you see the people crying out to the Lord, Lord, why have you turned away from us? Why can't we find you? You see a lot of that in these histories. We got a big fight coming up. Are you on our side still or not? And of course, there's never any answer from God in any of these histories. So one of these histories speaks of when Jesus was a baby and all the things he did. Well, I find that a little bit difficult considering he ain't born yet. So, it's just, anyway, they don't call him Jesus, they call him Messiah, the Messiah that would come. And all the little things he did as a child. Well, the church has rejected this as the church as a whole, except for the Catholic Church. Now, the Roman Catholics still believe in this part as part of the Bible, and they call it the Intertestamental Bible, between the Old and the New Testaments. And if you have a true Catholic Bible, it will have these books in it. And they're fun to read. I don't know that there's a whole lot of theology there, but they're fun. So, I'm going to start preaching from those books. No. All right, look at chapter 1. Remember, God's probably not in a good mood. So just keep that in mind. Yes. Or it means a message from the Lord or the Lord's ambassador. Yes. Kind of like Son of Man, but with a Hebrew lisp. Son of Man, that's what that means. Son being divine ambassador of man to his creation. A message from God to his creation. So listen up. That's basically what Son of Man means. All right? That's why Jesus had the title, Son of Man. He was God's message to God's creation, with the full authority of God in it. And that's why when the Hebrews said, well, by what authority do you do this? That Jesus just went, crying out loud. What a bunch of monkeys. You wouldn't know it if it hit you in the face. All right, look at Malachi. The oracle of the word of the Lord to Israel through Malachi, the Son of Man. I have loved you, says the Lord. But you say, how hast thou loved us? The Lord answers, was not Esau Jacob's brother, declares the Lord? And yet I loved Jacob, who became Israel. Esau was his brother, who sold God out for a bowl of soup. Remember that? That's way back here. And God says, I have hated Esau. Who dares sell God out for a bowl of soup? I have hated Esau, and I have made his mountains a desolation, and have appointed his inheritance for the jackals of the wilderness. And though Edom, which is the town of Esau, and though Edom says, we have been beaten down, but we will return and build up upon the ruins, thus says the Lord of hosts. They could build all they want, but I will tear down again, and men will call them a wicked territory. And the people toward whom the Lord is indignant forever. Uh-oh, God's mad. Well, where is Edom? Well, let's look at the old Quicko map of Israel. There's the Sea of Galilee down to the Dead Sea. This is Israel over here. Edom is right here. Or Esau. It is modern day Jordan. It is modern day Jordan. And the irony of this, people say, oh, the Lord ain't real, Lord ain't real. Well, the Lord swore back here when Esau sold him out for a bowl of soup, he swore that his blessing would be upon Jacob, but Esau I shall hate forever. And the curse came back here. Forever will your descendants live in a wilderness for the jackals. So now he starts the patriarchal series with that curse upon Esau. First thing he reminds the people of as he's closing out the testamental period is, remember what happened to Esau. And if that's hard for you to remember, for crying out loud, look across the river. What do you see? Israel is blooming and green and lush and productive and wonderful. That is a worthless wasteland, a desert. Nothing grows there. There's no oil there. They can't even get rich off that. There's no water there. All the water that Amman, Jordan, which is up here, their capital city, all the water comes down from Syria. Has to be pumped in. There's no water here. There's no nothing here. There's the Jordan River, but there's international laws to where you can't pump out of that. So they have to get their water from Syria. They wouldn't want the Jordan River water anyway because Jews have been in it. They were nasty, raggedy Jews. So anyway, to this day, it's a worthless, lifeless place on earth. I've been there. If you remember Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, and they're looking for the Valley of the Crescent Moon, it's down here. There's the Valley of the Crescent Moon. And as you see it on TV when they ride their horses through, it's just like that. It's a little thin thing that barely one man on a horse can get through. And it's about a mile long. It's a big crack in the earth. And remember when Indiana Jones is fighting the tank and all those guys, and the tank goes over the cliff and all that? You notice the terrain around there? It's just all dust and dirt and rocks flying everywhere. That's what it is. And it's not a nice kind of dirt. It's that dirty dirt that sticks to you and just won't grow anything, but it's nasty. You can't get it off. All of Jordan is like that. And you can tour. There's a few little, if you want to call them villages, but I mean they are sparse. They are far between, and there is nothing there. I mean, about one of the most worthless pieces of real estate on the planet is modern day Jordan. Amman's a kind of a nicer little bit of a city, but again, everything is pumped down from Syria. Otherwise, it would be nothing. Even with all our technology and agricultural science and all that, they can't get anything to grow there. That's what caused the Great War, when they said, well, we'll just annex the west bank of our country, which was Israel. Because they looked over here, saw all these date trees and crops and everything growing, and they just annexed it and said, oh, by the way, we own all that now. And, you know, the Jews have a little bit of a problem with that. It just take our land. And the cannonballs started flying, you know, tanks and bombs, and that's been going on ever since. That's why the Jews have such a heavy military presence right there. To this day, they did. Jordans aren't taking our property. Anyway, this is how Malachi starts. God says, before I give you the last message, before I go quiet, I want you all to do me a favor, please. Here, Bob, let me help you. Your bag is getting caught there. All right. Here you go. No, you're fine. He says, I want you all to do me a favor. First and foremost, before I give you the rest of the message, will you do me one favor? And I said, what's that? Look across the river and tell me what you see. Most important, tell me why you see that instead of this. I hate Esau. I hated him when he sold me for a bowl of soup. Put anything in front of me, says the Lord, I'm going to hate you as well. Especially soup. Don't do it. Don't do it. I don't even care if it's extra chunky Campbell's. Don't do it. I hated Esau. I told him he'd never have anything. To this day, he doesn't have any. Well, and this is 400 BC. This, by the way, was 2600 BC, something like that, way back there. 2500. This is 400. So 2 millennia have passed. Okay? 2,000 years. Have you learned anything? Or are you just, you've been through exile, you've had your temple destroyed, you've had it rebuilt, it's nothing like it used to be. But did you learn anything? Or are you as stupid as your forefathers? Well, before I give you my final message, look across the river and tell me what you see. That could easily happen to you. I love the verse in the New Testament. People think, oh, that's all Old Testament. God doesn't think like that. And Jesus says, you know, the Lord provides, and the Lord can easily take it away. Easily. Be careful who you make enemies with. Be careful. If you leave the Lord, to whom would you go? Who can ally themselves with you that they should be strong enough to beat the Lord? I want to think about that before you get all Miss High and Mighty on me. That's out of Jesus' mouth. You know what Jesus was saying? So God's not that important, right? Look across the river and tell me what you see. Been that way for nearly 3,000 years. Well, add another couple of thousand years to it, this side of the cross. And you know what? They still can't get anything to grow there. I'm talking about 2018, AD, ADE. I'm an old day era, the era of our Lord. That's a reference to Jesus. Can't call it, before Christ. That's before the Christian era, BCE. Politically correct. You know what I got a feeling of? And it's just me. I don't think God's politically correct. At all. At all. He is going to call it just like he sees it.
Yep.
And you know what? I'm going to tell you another secret. Don't let this get out. Turn off the camera. I think God only created 2 genders. Now, I know California has 47 now. But I think God has only 2. Just saying. I don't think he's politically correct, and I don't think he's changing the genders. I don't think God changes anything. You know how I know this? Look across the river. I am the same yesterday, today, and forever. When I told you I hated Esau and I cursed everything about Esau and his land, his descendants forever, and I do not change, well, what do you think is going to happen in 400 BC? What do you think it's going to be in 2018? I think it's hilarious. They still can't get anything to grow. Next best thing, we'll just annex Israel. Well, the Jews had a little problem with that. I hate Esau. I said I hated Esau, and I will hate him to the end of time. Now, the question becomes, the implicational question, do you want to be part of this? Do we need to do some urban renewal over here? And towards people, listen to this last verse, they say they're going to rebuild upon the ruins, and they can rebuild all they want. I will tear it down again. And all men will call that a wicked territory. Cursed are the people toward whom the Lord is angry or indignant forever. You want to make yourself an enemy, said Jesus? Who would you ally yourself with that could withstand the Lord? Be careful who you make your enemy. A son honors his father. Look at verse 6. A son honors his father, and a servant honors his master. Then if I am a father, this is the Lord speaking, where is my honor? If I am a master, where is my respect, says the Lord of hosts, to you, O priests, who despise my name. But you say, Lord, how have we despised thy name? Are you not presenting defiled food upon my altar? Remember the all offerings they had to bring and all that stuff? That's still in effect in the temple. Are you not presenting defiled food upon my altar? But you say, how have we defiled thee? The table of the Lord is to you to be despised. You bring your sacrifice and you present the blind sheep, besmirched sickness. You present your blind for sacrifice. Is that not evil? When you present to me the lame and the sick sheep, or cows or whatever, the ones you can't sell anyway, you give them to God. Well, church always gets the best. Is that not evil? Why not go and offer it to your governor? Would he be pleased with you? Would he receive you kindly, says the Lord of hosts? If you gave your cancer-ridden, sick, rotting sheep to your governor, would he be joyed with that? He'd have his guards cut you in half. But you give it to the Lord, and that's okay. How long will you not entreat God's favor, that I may be gracious to you? With such an offering on your part, will the Lord receive any of you kindly, says the Lord of hosts. Oh, I wish there were one amongst you who would shut the gates of the temple, and not even uselessly kindle your fire on my altar. I am not pleased with you, says the Lord of hosts. nor will I accept your offering from you. Because from the rising of the sun until its setting, from the beginning of time to the end of time, creation to its consummation, from the rising of the sun even to its setting, my name is great amongst the nations, and in every place incenses will be offered to my name, grain offerings that is pure for my name, and I will remain great amongst the nations, says the Lord. But you, his priests, his own people, you continue to profane my name. And that you say, oh, the table of the Lord is defiled, and as for its fruit, its food is to be despised. You also grow weary and say, my, how tiresome that is. You know, these sacrifices. Every Sunday you got to go to church. How tiresome it is, and you disdainfully sniff at it. And you bring that as your offering, what was taken by robbery. And you bring the lame and the sick. This is what you bring as your offering. Should I receive that from your hand, says the Lord? Is that how you're going to honor me? Cursed be such a swindler who has a firstling male in his flock and promises it, vows it, but instead sacrifices a blemished animal to the Lord. I am a great king, says the Lord of hosts, and my name is feared throughout all the earth. How dare you? You have fine sheep, you have fine goats, fine cattle, beautiful, unblemished, perfect, strong, healthy. But oh wait, you want to keep those. But you got a lame one over here with only 2 legs and it's dying of cancer anyway. That'll make a perfect offering to God. And God says, am I supposed to be happy with that? Do me a favor, Mary. The river. You might want to reconsider that 2-legged cow you're trying to give me. You call me Lord and Master, but if you do, where's my honor? A true son will honor his father. A true servant will honor his master. And you call me both, Lord and Master. Where then is my honor? Oh, we honor you, Lord. How? This is what you're doing. Bringing me the garbage, basically. You know, we used to do that in a beta house. It had nothing to do with worship, but every night after dinner, scrape all the eatable stuff into one giant can, and every night after dinner, about an hour afterward, a little old fellow would show up and he'd take that garbage can full of yuck and put another one down, and off he'd drive. And I didn't know what that was all about. Hope that guy ain't eating that. I kept telling Dusty, why don't we just make this man some decent food? He goes, it's enough for him that I missed the seat. I said, who's it for? He goes, that's for the little piglies. The little what? Little piglies. The guy had a pig farm. And he would do that, and we'd feed them from the beta house. And every homecoming, he'd give us a big old hog, dress it, clean it, and everything, and bring it out there. And Dusty'd put it on a huge barbecue spit outside and cook it like for a day and a half. And it would be the most succulent ribs and stuff you ever had, pulled pork in your life. Every homecoming. They still do that to this day. Well, not Dusty, he's dead. But the 2 new cooks they've hired, they still do that. Good old Dusty. And Lump. Lump was his sous chef. Dusty and Lump. Lump was always hammered. I like Lump. Dusty said, good morning, Mr. C. Come on in. I'll make you something wonderful. Hey, Lump, how's it going? That good, huh? Good old Lump. Dusty's an old guy, about 100 years old. Lump was like 28. That was his real name, Lump. And Walter Lump. So everybody just called him Lump. God, memories, one picture. My head explodes. I can't. But you see what God's saying in this first chapter? I'm not pleased with you. I'm not pleased with you. You know, this Christian thing, and Christ reiterates basically the same message, this Christian thing is a two-way process. You know, it's a street that goes both ways. You want my blessings and protection, and you want my glory to make everything you do go well, and your fruits could just flourish. But you know, I want some honor and glory as well, and I'm trying to give all those blessings to you, but are you using your side of the street to return some glory to me? Well, the answer is, in all reality, we say we are with our lips and our rhetoric, but the fact of the matter is, in our daily living, not so much. Okay, it gets worse.